So part of the problem that we have today with how we categorize Hispanic, quote unquote, Hispanic people, which was a created term by the United States government, comes from this thought of original races. So the original races had to do with Europeans, Africans, Asians, and Native people. It did not include Latinos or Hispanics or people from the Southern Hemisphere. They were not considered part of the original races. So we have this legacy today where, and you all know filling out forms and all of that, right? Do I check Hispanic for race or ethnicity? No, actually there's no racial category for Hispanic, right? You have to check Hispanic ethnicity, but then choose white as a race. And that comes from these concepts, right? This comes from the original 4 races. And so we are kind of, in a way, perpetuating these concepts because our legal constructs have adapted around some of these, you know, kind of crazy ways of categorizing people. So Hispanics are categorized as an ethnicity, but not a race. And we see this come up, you know, when the census comes out. And for myself, you know, having, you know, children who are Black and Latino and Navajo, which box do we check, right? And so for children going through this, having a consciousness about who I am, how do I categorize myself, and if I have somebody, and I remember doing this, you know, going through this as a child, if you have also an administrator who is uncomfortable talking about these issues, then it makes you uncomfortable, etc. But if we all kind of understand where this kind of categorizations come from, then it can, you know, help put people at ease a little bit. Any questions about any of that? Folks on the phone, you still okay?
Yep.
So actually, Lisa, like, why is it that, like, children who are Black and white, they end up having to say that they're Black? Why do they have to?
Yeah, and the question is, why do they have to, right? And oftentimes in our world, we tend to think of things in binaries, right? Black or white, right? Person of color or, you know, or white, right? And really, instead of thinking that our world is actually evolving, in the sense that people are becoming, there's a term that's used, more racially ambiguous. So if you were to look at a picture of my daughter, for example, you wouldn't look at her and see that she's half Black, because she's actually very light-skinned. She's probably around your complexion, right? But it's not necessarily around, geez, what do I choose? Because, you know, being biracial myself, it would have been helpful to have guidance of how to be, you know, grow up in a biracial identity. So you kind of figure that out as you go. What my husband and my husband is Navajo and Black, and like I said, I'm Black and Mexican. And so we have consciously raised our children to have a consciousness about all of their identities. Because we have learned through our experiences that if you are not able to assert your identity, other people will categorize you. No, you have to choose this, you have to choose that. The other reason I think, though, is that our society doesn't look at necessarily a biracial child who is of mixed Black ancestry and say, oh, that's a white person, right? Because white, again, is a status that has evolved in American society. So that's why it also can be odd, right, that it doesn't fit. So some people have said, well, why hasn't President Barack Obama said, I'm white, right? You know, think of the constructs we have. It seems a little bit ridiculous for him to just say, I'm white, because the world has viewed him as a Black man growing up. However, he has acknowledged his white mother and his white grandparents in the development of raising him, who were his core structure. But oftentimes, you know, mainstream America doesn't want to get into that complicatedness of identity.